so welcome back everybody to our latest episode of The Nest. It has been a while since we were on the air, but with the NFL playoffs starting this weekend, we are back to preview all of the matchups this weekend, as well as discuss the state of the Patriots following their loss to the Buffalo Bills back on Sunday, which eliminated them from the playoffs. And joining me for today's episode are Anirban Chakraborty and Rohan Venkatesh. How's everyone doing?
I gotta say it's great to be here. Happy New Year, everyone. Although I know we're here on this 12th day of the year, and I have to say to all of our loyal viewers and all of our subscribers, thank you so much for making this possible, because this is our third year on the air. We started in 2020, 2021, 2022 was our first full year, and we're back here in 2023. And so you made this possible for us to be here as long as we are here. And we're going to do the best that we can to keep bringing you our matchups and our predictions. And of course, any of you who like Boston sports or sports in general, we're going to be here for you.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Good to be back after also a brief break. So I'm excited to talk about the NFL.
Yeah, so before we go into the NFL playoffs and predict each of the matchups, which we will be doing today, we'll first talk about the Patriots and recap their season. Obviously, a pretty disappointing year. They lose 35-23 to the Bills on Sunday in Buffalo. 2 kickoff returns allowed, which was pretty bad. And the offense looked pretty solid for the most part. The defense did okay, but ultimately the Bills were the better team. And the Patriots, after starting 6-4, missed the playoffs at 8-9. So let's just talk about that.
Oh yeah,
first.
I mean the Bills definitely deserved to win last Sunday. I mean, as you said, they were definitely the better team, and of course, I think this Bills team is just like, they're just so galvanized. I mean, especially after what happened to Damar Hamlin. Of course, like after he suffered cardiac arrest literally on the field. It's hard for a team not to get galvanized by that, and I couldn't help but draw comparisons between that. Of course, it's not the same situation. It's not the same kind of magnitude. Of course, it was different times, different circumstances, all that stuff. But I think that this team is galvanized in a very similar way to the way the Red Sox were galvanized in 2013 after the marathon bombing, after something so traumatic happens to your city and your team. And let's not forget, this wasn't just traumatic for the Bills, for Damar and Damar Hamlin. This was traumatic for the entire city of Buffalo, and because the city of Buffalo has been just through so much in the year of 2022. You had the blizzard and the snowstorm that they had, which pretty much shut down the airports, and people couldn't get around. People were stuck freezing out in the streets. And add to that, this past spring, there was that massacre in the supermarket. So it's been a rough year for Buffalo, and the Bills the Bills were essentially like this rare point of light for the Bills and for the city of Buffalo, and for them to suffer this kind of tragedy. Luckily it turns out that looks like Damar Hamlin is okay. But I think this does put an emphasis on safety in sports. And we all love the game of football, but at the same time, I don't think it's a stretch to say that I speak for a lot of people out there who say that I want to see the game get safer. But that said, though, I mean, I think it was a great rally by the Bills. They definitely played well. That opening kickoff return, obviously, I mean, it hurt as a Pats fan to see that. But honestly, even if I go back and look at alternate scenarios, even if the Pats had won that matchup, they very likely would be in the playoffs in a first round matchup against Buffalo, in Buffalo, and it would basically be a repeat of last year's matchup in the wild card round. And I can't help but think that the Patriots probably would have gotten demolished anyways. I don't want to sound too negative over here,
well,
but just
here's the thing.
So I agree with
you. So I agree with you. Like, I mean, in the case that they did end up making it into the playoffs and playing Buffalo, and even if they got crushed again, I would still argue that's a better scenario than missing the playoffs outright. Because for Mac Jones' own confidence now, like, think about it like this. He went from making the playoffs last year to missing it outright, right? For a young player's confidence and the whole team's confidence, it's better to make the playoffs 2 years in a row and try to build on that than to make the playoffs 1 year and miss the playoffs. Even if the result, like, they're not going to win a Super Bowl. But, I mean, at the same time, I just think for the development of the team and gaining like confidence overall, that's why I would sort of say it hurts the most for the Patriots.
No, I disagree. Because I think young players learn from adversity. I think this is just the dose of adversity that the Pats
the adversity. I don't agree with that though, because you could say the adversity last year was getting like crushed by Buffalo, right? So the adversity would have been if you lose to Buffalo again. So, I mean, you can look at it whatever way we want. Like the team obviously has major flaws, which now they look like they're addressing. They look like they're bringing Gerard Mayo back, and they are going to be conducting interviews for an actual offensive coordinator. So that is good, but at the same time, it is disappointing that like the offense all year was pretty like kind of bad, and then the special teams this season was atrocious. It was probably the worst in the league. They allowed 3 kickoff returns for a touchdown this season. Like you could point to this game against Buffalo and the Thanksgiving night matchup against Minnesota as the 2 games where special teams probably cost them the game. Against Minnesota, they allowed a kick return 2 for a touchdown. And also, people forget this, but it was 26-26. Pierre Strong ran into the punter on a 4th down when it was a tie game, and the Vikings ended up scoring the game-winning touchdown on that same drive. So basically, special teams was terrible. Against the Raiders, there was also they allowed a punt block, which allowed the Raiders to score a touchdown on a short field. A game, of course, the Patriots lost on that lateral disaster that happened. But all in all, like when I look at all these moments, it's just a sign of bad coaching. And that's where Bill Belichick deserves a lot of the blame this season. Like, I don't think he did a good enough job.
And I mean, I would second that in the sense that, I mean, you could point to a lot of things that happened this year. I mean, if one thing had gone right, they probably would have gotten to the playoffs. And if they had gone to the playoffs, I think a lot of these things probably wouldn't have been looked at. I mean, of course, you could point to the game against the Raiders, the lateral disaster, but of course the game they blew against Green Bay as well, losing in overtime over there. I mean, if any of these matchups had gone differently,
don't forget Cincinnati. They fumbled in the red zone.
Oh yeah, that's another one. And I mean, of course, I mean, like red zone has kind of been a weak point for the Patriots. I mean, they had one of the worst records in terms of converting, at least when they were in the when they were in the red zone. Of course, this is just one sign of many of the offensive difficulties that the Patriots had. I mean, some of it can be on Mac Jones, but I would have to say that most of the blame probably has to go to the offensive coaching staff because I really don't think that the offensive coaching staff really put Mac Jones in a position to do well. And I think later the season, I think Mac Jones and Matt Patricia, I mean, I mean, without any direct evidence, you could generally kind of see that there was a falling out because you could see the frustration on Mac Jones's face. And for Matt Patricia, who's by trade a defensive coach, I really think he was in the wrong job. And I think that they could that he would be better suited in a different position. And that's to put it nicely. To put it not so nicely, he's definitely got to go. But putting all that together, I would have to say that there were strong points to this Patriots team. I mean, they were defensively one of the stronger teams, and I would have to say the Patriots Player of the Year has got to be Matthew Judon. I got to give it to him. He's pretty much what held this team together and kept it as close for as long as he did. 15.5 sacks on the year. That's really there's really not much more you could have asked out of any single player. And so I think that really made Mac Jones's job easier. The fact that the offense really couldn't get it done, I think that says more about the team overall.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think there's going to be a lot of blame to go around this offseason, and of course there already is. And whether this means Matt Patricia leaves, I think realistically, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head by saying they're probably going to reassign his duties, his obligations without formally letting him go, because at the end of the day, he is one of Bill Belichick's most trusted lieutenants, has been for some time now. And if there's one thing we've seen of the kind of Belichick era in at least the last recent years, is that the Belichick coaching tree is really a big part of the coaching philosophy in New England. So that's something I want to mention. The other thing I did want to mention is that, I personally was actually, like if we talk about one bright spot, I do think we saw a little more from Mac Jones to really close out the season in terms of some of the things that he could really offer and build on. Even, of course, as you admit, that this has been, there's no way around it. It's been a regression for Mac Jones this season. He threw for 22 touchdowns last year, only 14 this year. Well, along with, of course, getting benched for Billy Zappi at one point against Chicago Bears. But you look at the last 3 games against the Bills, Dolphins, and Bengals, he had 2 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, and 3 touchdowns. And of course, we all know he threw 3 picks against the Bills. two of which I think, or you could kind of say I wouldn't put it entirely on him, because some of them you could say
The
like
last
maybe,
two I don't blame on him, honestly.
yeah, like some of them, Nelson Aguilar probably could have done a little better with that, and I think he's one player whose time in New England rightfully seems to be over. I think he could benefit from a change. I think we certainly could. But to point at that, right, just for context, Mac is outside of surprisingly Jacoby Brissett. He's the only quarterback to put up 3 touchdowns against the Bills this season. And the media darling Justin Fields, of course, had a bit of a resurgence in his narrative. But even with Justin Fields, like, yeah, of course he had the performance after the Patriots where he went on to score 2 or 3 touchdowns, but he's really only cracked 200 yards twice this season. And he's only thrown 2 or more touchdowns like 5 games this year, even after that resurgence. So I think it's only fair that if the media narrative around Justin Fields is a resurgent quarterback with the opportunity to build picks around the Bears, I think it's fair to look at Mac Jones, especially the last couple of games. I mean, against the Bengals, Dolphins, Bills, Dolphins defense, Bills defense. I think it's pretty fair to look at that and say, I see something there. I see that even in this situation with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, which clearly from day one just didn't seem to be going in a positive direction. At least he was able to pull something out and in my opinion, end the season on a stronger note. So I'd love to hear Martia's thoughts on that. I mean, we all know that Mac Jones's spot is going to be under pressure with Bailey Zappi this coming off season. Bill Belichick really declined to clearly put his entire confidence behind him. So do you think, how do you think he's going to use that motivation, Mac Jones? And second, do you think we're going to see more of what we saw in the last couple of games of the season?
I mean, it's hard to really know, right? I mean, I think Bailey Zappi, like in the 2 games he really started, he did pretty good against the Lions and against the Browns. And the Lions ended up actually making a late playoff push. They missed it barely, but they were actually a pretty good team, and he actually played pretty well overall. So, but the thing is, I don't really think Zappi, like, I don't know if the answer is really Mac or Zappi. Like, my ambitious hope is that Tom Brady decides to come back here, but that's probably not going to happen. But anyways, I think like Mac Jones, like he's probably your guy at this point, right? And it's hard to really know how good he can really be. Like, I think this past year, like, he showed flashes, but here's the thing: a lot of guys show flashes, right? I mean, in the NFL, like, I mean, all he's probably shown is that he can be a quarterback in the NFL, a starting quarterback. But is he good enough to be the guy who can win you a championship or get you there? Maybe. I mean, the thing is, if you look at San Francisco with Brock Purdy, how do you compare Brock Purdy to Mac Jones? They're probably pretty similar. It's just that Brock Purdy's offense also includes George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, really good offensive players. So maybe that's the key for the Patriots. They got to surround Mac Jones with really good offensive players. I mean, right now they have Ramondre Stevenson, but they don't have nearly as good tight end or wide receivers as San Francisco does. So I think that's probably Belichick's goal in the end, to try and do what San Francisco's doing. And I think that's doable. If Mac Jones can be your game manager, like the way Jimmy Garoppolo was for the 49ers in 2019, or even last year, 2021, when they made it to the NFC Championship game, I think that's sort of the best case approach I can see them. I think Mac Jones can be pretty good, but it's hard to really know how good this guy can be. Like, I mean, I think this season, like, it was a pretty bad regression. I've also to say, compared to 2020, when you had Cam Newton and you went 7-9, this feels a lot worse than 2020, because at least in 2020, like going into 2021, you had some optimism that things would be better because they were going to get a new quarterback in the draft. We didn't know who at the time, but it turned out to be Mac Jones. But comparing now to 2022, where now you're going into 2023, and there's more uncertainty again as to whether or not Mac Jones is really your guy or not, you're asking all these questions, and I don't really know. So unfortunately, it's just sort of the situation. I mean, I hope he's the guy, but it's hard to know like how good this guy can be. I think he was really restrained last year. His receivers also aren't that good when you compare it to other young quarterbacks. I mean, Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs. Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And Patrick Mahomes obviously had Tyreek Hill. Now he has Travis Kelce still. So all these elite guys still have elite playmakers on their team. Patriots don't really have that. So there's a lot of stuff that Belichick needs to address. If he can address those needs, then I can see this team improving a lot next year. But I mean, I think overall, the roster-wise, I don't think the roster is the main problem. I don't think the talent is the main issue for why this team struggled. I think it was the coaching that really kind of brought them down. A lot of mistakes they make were uncharacteristic. So that's going to be something that Belichick has to clear up on his end. There was a report that came out on the defensive side that Jack Jones, the rookie quarterback, apparently talked back to Belichick in a practice. Like, that's something you would never have heard of ever at some point. A rookie talking to the greatest coach of all time, or just talking back to him.
That basically
So
tells me that Belichick is kind of a lame duck right now. I mean, he's had great moments in the past, but I would have to say his time is up. Not entirely. I mean, he's definitely one of the greatest coaches of all time, and he does double as the defensive coach, and the defense was rock solid this year. So I don't think that we should be that we should be sidelining Belichick entirely. But I think the we should be having this conversation about whether a new head coaching position should be open. And I also disagree with this notion that everything needs to be fixed in 1 year. I think that it's going to require a little bit of a rebuild. If it takes a few years, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. At this point, we're kind of debating whether it's going to be Bailey Zappi or whether it's going to be Mac Jones. Both quarterbacks have shown that they can be good, and I think that next year, the best course of action would be to give both of them adequate playing time to really show their true colors. So that would give the scouts, the coaching staff, better tools and to really assess like who's going to be our quarterback moving forward. And if the conventional wisdom says that having multiple QBs, having more than one starter, is a bad thing, and that leads to team disunity. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, if you do that next year, are the Patriots gonna say win the Super Bowl? I'd say unlikely, but I'd say even in the alternate scenario in which they pick someone, whether it's Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi, I still think that their chances of winning the Super Bowl are pretty slim.
what if Tom Brady came back?
No, that's not going to happen. And let me get to that, right? Because
what? But if he came back, you don't think that Tom Brady elevates the offense enough?
No, I think we got to move on. I think we got to let go. Honestly, I think Brady had his time in New England. He brought the Patriots 6 championships. It was a great time while he was around. It's not the same Tom Brady that he was a few years ago when he was with the Patriots. Obviously he's shown that he's been able to win with the Buccaneers as well. He is kind of struggling right now. Of course, that might be a one-off. But call it what you will. But even in a scenario, and even in a hypothetical scenario where Brady comes back, he's definitely getting older, and I definitely think that the Patriots need to have their mindset on the future rather than the past. I think that developing new players, developing new quarterbacks is definitely the way forward to build the next great set of Patriots teams, potentially another dynasty. And I really think that in order to do that, you need to have a clean break from the past. I think that there's kind of a sense of nostalgia where Belichick, Brady, they all had it together, and those were great times. Well, I have to say that ship has sailed, and trying to bring it back will only bring about more frustration. And I think that for the Patriots moving forward, they got to be able to change things up, and if it calls for a rebuild of a few years, I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I also gotta agree with that. Like at this point, I think people forget that it's not a given to draft a quarterback who can even play like Mac Jones's caliber. I mean, yeah, Trevor Lawrence is undoubtedly, the best performer. He had the greatest season of all the quarterbacks in that rookie class. But I think the fact remains that it's really easy for us to say this after 20 years. Like most teams would, I think, around the league would look at 2 years of what Mac Jones has produced and think, yeah, I'd rather kind of go with that than risk trading him away and going into the draft. And you don't know again who you're going to get, especially because we're not in a position to go for like the top 1 or 2 quarterbacks in the pool. And regarding Tom Brady, I mean, again, yeah, he's still playing, and maybe he'll play for another 5 years or 15, whatever. I don't know what he wants to do these days, but that's besides the point. The point is, I mean, even this season, like, let's be real, he hasn't had a great season. The games he's had were throwing him big yards. Yeah, 432 against Carolina Panthers, like, great. 312 against the Bengals, who aren't exactly known for their defensive prowess. And then he puts up like 7 points against the 49ers. He loses to the Cleveland Browns, loses to the Carolina Panthers earlier, 21-3. I mean, let's not put icing on the cake here. Tom Brady has not had a great year at quarterback. This is going to be the first time ever that he's finishing under 500. And yeah, you can point to the coaches there. But the fact remains that he has two absolute like beast wide receivers, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And yeah, I recognize that there's been some changes to the O-line and defense, but I think it's really a stretch to say that Tom Brady coming to the Patriots makes us like a champion level team. And for people saying that, oh, people are coming to play with Brady, well, why didn't that happen to the Buccaneers this offseason? Why didn't they get enough players coming in for that, right? The fact remains the Patriots have one of the leaders in available cap space entering this offseason. So I'm thinking, they've already invested time in Mac Jones. Why just flip the boat and get Tom Brady? And then, I mean, real talk, we don't know how long he's going to be here. Do we really want to take all the development effort that we put into Mac, throw it out the window, get Brady for 1 or 2 years, maybe make the divisional round, and then you're back to square one? I don't think that's worth it. I think what's more important is to focus on getting smart free agent acquisitions, using the draft well. We've had a good draft class the last year or two. Let's not forget Marcus Jones, Jack Jones, for one, even this year were bright spots. So, there's rumors about DeAndre Hopkins wanting out of Arizona. We know that Brandon Cooks is fed up in Texas and Houston Texans. Let's use that available cap space to make smart decisions, get, a revamped offensive line, potentially draft a young cornerback as well, a young wide receiver. I think there's actual things that we can focus on outside of the quarterback position that we actually really should focus on.
Yeah, I should also just mention that the Tom Brady comment was only in half jest. I am sort of half serious. Like, I mean, obviously I'd love to have him back, but at the same time, I also do recognize that he's probably not the answer to everything. I think
I don't like to have him back. Anyone who's suggesting that is just they're living in the past. They're living on nostalgia. Let me just be frank about that.
So you don't think he can be good next year?
I mean, he could potentially be good next year, but it's not a long-term solution.
Well,
we got to really be developing for the next
how well
5,
he's done
10
against
years.
NFC teams. The AFC is by far, I mean, it's a lopsided league, let's face it. The AFC teams that we're going to be playing next year are far better on aggregate than the teams Tom Brady struggled against this year. Like, let that sink in, right? I mean, he put up 3 points against the Carolina Panthers. Like, I mean, come on. He's going to be playing better teams than that, like 3 quarters.
When's his next game versus when's the Patriots' next game, though?
Yeah,
one's
he made
playing on Monday night.
because...
The other's not playing till September.
He's in the NFC South and he's 8-9, so like great for him. Like we would have made the playoffs in that division.
Anyways, okay, my real serious discussion for this, rather than going into Tom Brady, we'll talk about Tom Brady's team in a bit when we preview his matchup against the Cowboys. But anyways, well, I think the real thing the Pats need to do, because I don't think Brady's going to be coming back. The serious topic for me is I think you got to hire a real offensive coordinator. So if you can get Cliff Kingsbury, who got fired by the Cardinals, Bill O'Brien or Frank Reich, those are my 3 top choices because all 3 are pretty good offensive minds. So if you can get one of those guys and actually work with Mac Jones on there, preferably Bill O'Brien because he's at Alabama, and actually Mac Jones worked with Bill O'Brien before he graduated from Alabama. So I would love to see Cliff Kingsbury or Bill O'Brien, and maybe DeAndre Hopkins and Brandon Cooks, one of those two. If it's Hopkins, then he already played with Kingsbury. So that's probably more my ideal situation. If you can hire Cliff Kingsbury and work with Mac Jones, I think Mac Jones can be better, but I don't know how much better he can be, but let's see what happens. I mean, I still do think that Brady would help, but I also have a feeling he's going to go to somewhere else this offseason. I think he's going to go to Vegas or somewhere. Vegas or Miami, one of those 2 teams I could see.
Stop chasing the past. That's all I got to say.
That's what the Raiders are going to do, not the Pats, though.
Well, the Raiders are potentially Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. I definitely don't think Aaron Rodgers is a good fit for New England in like any respect. But again, like the Patriots have such a big job to do. They have to literally they let go of their entire starting O-line to like free season. Trent Brown's gone, and I personally think maybe he'd be a better fit somewhere else. I mean, for one thing, but the other thing is, our cornerbacks got torched by Stephon Diggs, right? Miles Bryant is leaving the Patriots this offseason. I mean, we know our tight end situation has been a mess. Nelson Aguilar with his like 14 million is out. Let's focus on those positions. If we're going to toss quarterback in there too, we're literally going to be fielding a new team next season. That's just too much to be like going on. I mean, next season, it's everyone's expectation is, okay, 4 years out without a playoff game. Fun is over. We got to make the playoffs next year. We have no excuse not to. So let's focus on the stuff that actually needs big major fixing. The O-line, cornerback situation, wide receiver. Let's focus on those and then not worry about getting a new quarterback too. And suddenly you have a new team, and that just makes everything way more complicated.
Okay. Yeah, good discussion. So we'll see what happens this offseason about the Pats. But anyways, let's move on to talking about the NFL playoffs. So it begins Saturday. So we have 6 matchups, Super Wildcard Weekend, going from Saturday to Monday. So the first matchup we're going to be talking about are the Seahawks playing the 49ers. It's in San Francisco, first matchup of the day, 4:30 p.m. ET, 1:30 p.m. Local time. The 49ers won both matchups this season. Week 2 was 27-7. Week 15 it was a 21-13 win. So they have had the Seahawks number this season, and San Francisco has the best defense in the league. So what we'll basically just be talking about is just kind of going through, discussing some of the keys to the game, and then probably just giving our predictions, just kind of keeping it quick. So Rohan, I know you have a lot of numbers. So do you want to just give your prediction and like
yeah. I mean, look,
stuff you're going to be looking for?
I mean, if you want to hear my prediction right away, I'm going to go.
Wait.
Oh, okay. I'll get to the other stuff first. Okay, but honestly, I
say it at the end though. I'll let you.
Sure. Honestly, I think barring some sort of major upset or something like that, this should be in the bag for the Niners. Like you said, as you said, the Niners, they beat the Seahawks twice. They got the better record. They got this game at home. They got the best defense. The only thing that potentially might work against the Niners is that they don't have Jimmy G and they don't have Trey Lance, so it's going to be Brock Purdy. But that's not really a weak point because he's been holding up pretty well. And I would say that for the Niners, they also got to watch out for DK Metcalf. He's one of the few receivers who's had 1,000+ yards for the Seahawks. So that's one thing to potentially watch out for. But barring any kind of major surprise, I think it's major advantage Niners over here. And look, if you're looking at the betting markets, they got the Niners at a -475 money line to a +380 for the Seahawks, and the spread is 10 points. And the over/under on this matchup is 42.5. So if you're looking at all of that, what Vegas is actually not Vegas. The betting markets, if you do the math according to what CBS Sports is saying, so that's where I'm getting all these numbers from. It should lead to a final outcome of 26-16 Niners. I'm not going with 26-16 Niners, but I'm going with 24-14 Niners. I'm still going with the Niners by 10, but I do kind of think that that playoff matchups tend to be a little bit more of a defensive battle. So I'm going a little bit, slightly more of a low scoring game, but that's my take for that matchup.
Yeah, okay. So I think last game it was the first matchup we can kind of like sort of discard because Purdy didn't start that matchup. So I'm looking at the last one, which was actually week 15, only a few weeks ago, 21-13 win. That game, Purdy threw 2 touchdowns to George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey also ran for over 100 yards and a touchdown. So it's almost like the Seattle Seahawks are basically faced with a pick your poison type of like situation with which receiver are you going to let basically torch you, or which player is going to torch you. That's how good the 49ers offense is. And don't forget, San Francisco's defense is the best in the league. You got Bosa, Greenlaw, Fred Warner, just like absolute beasts on defense. And it's just going to be a battle for Seattle. I don't really know how Seattle can win this unless San Francisco gets complacent, and I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be 49ers 24, Seahawks 10. So that's my pick.
Okay, you're going even more lopsided than I am. But we do agree on 49ers scoring 24.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie Gould with 1 kick. And yeah, 49ers will be back in the divisional round again.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add there. I think you guys really hit the nail on the head. I'm also going with the 49ers here. Probably, 30-12.
Okay. So, next matchup. It's going to be Saturday night. Chargers at the Jaguars. Very interesting matchup because here's the thing. Week 3, Jaguars won 38-10 in LA. Now, here's the one thing about LA though. The Chargers don't really have many fans. So how impactful was that win in LA? Probably not as much, but this is going to be interesting for me. This is probably going to be the most interesting matchup of the thing where I really don't know who's going to be able to win this.
That's a pretty sad comment about the city of Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, right? So like, I have no idea what's going to be happening on Sunday.
Every city's proud. Every city has its team. They got their fans. And it's really sad if that is the case.
I mean, some cities like Oakland, for example, they're just, I don't know, the fans don't really turn up. Can't imagine why. But anyways,
this isn't a bad team. I mean, this is the team that went to the AFC Championship just a few years ago and lost to the Patriots. So And
Yeah,
of
but
course,
they've been absolutely horrific until this past season from that point onward.
Jacksonville has hosted the Super Bowl as well in the past. I mean, this
Yeah,
is
but
not
hosting the
it's
Super
not
Bowl is not like okay. But anyways, like I don't think. I mean, this is a very interesting matchup. What I'm trying to say, I'm not saying the team is bad. I'm just saying the city and the stadium probably isn't the most exciting.
I'm still
place.
sending my love to the city of Jacksonville.
Okay, we got our Jacksonville. Okay, so you want to go first then with your picks?
Yeah, with this one, I'd say it's a much harder matchup to predict because they only played each other once, and in that matchup, the Chargers the Chargers lost 38-10. So that was a pretty big win for the Jags actually, and that was back on September 25th. So granted, it was early in the season, but the Jags they're recently kind of hot. They're kind of on a 5-game win streak. The Jags are 9-8. The Chargers are 10-7. And the Jags also have Trevor Lawrence, he's had a phenomenal year after kind of struggling initially in his rookie year. He's really shown that he can come back and he's able to play up to the NFL standard. Meanwhile, for the Chargers, I mean, Justin Herbert, he had a decent year as well, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. But I would say that my prediction for this I would have to say that I slightly favor the Jags on this one. Very, 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 very slightly. I think it's gonna be a lot closer, but it looks like I disagree with the betting markets over here because the betting markets actually favor the Chargers by 2.5 points, and the over/under on that's 47.5. The money line's Chargers 140 minus 140 to Jags plus 118. So I'm actually going with the underdog on this one. And if you do the math on that, that leads to a betting market prediction of Chargers 25, Jags 22. But I'm going with Jags 28, Chargers 24. That's kind of how I think that this matchup is going to go. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a phenomenal game, and I think he's going to basically cement himself as someone to be taken seriously on the playoff stage.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is probably in terms of parity, like one of the best playoff games in this round. I actually have to go with the Jaguars in this one too. I mean, I think they're just riding on a high right now, 5 games, including that really, really solid close win over the Tennessee Titans. And I mean, Trevor Lawrence, I mean, 318 yards against the Cowboys, 4 touchdowns, even against the Titans, 212 yards, 1 touchdown. Jaguars have, Trevor Lawrence throwing to players like Christian Kirk, who really emerged this season. We all know Travis Etienne on running back is emerging as a franchise running back. He single-handedly literally sent James Robinson packing off to the New York Jets. And I mean, meanwhile with the Chargers, they're finally healthy. I mean, they missed Keenan Allen very much early to start the season, and now he's back to play a huge role. But I mean, this is a team that lost 31-28 to the Denver Broncos, right? This is the team that lost to the Raiders 27-20 and really squeaked by the Cardinals 25-24. This team, to me, the thing with the Chargers, it just seems like they are one of the unluckiest teams in the NFL. I mean, we remember how they got lost to the playoff spot against the Raiders, and that's really strange overtime. They have, I think, over a 3-year period from 2017 to 2020, or over a 10-year period, actually, the lowest margin of victory, 1.6, and an almost 500 record up till that point. So I really feel like the luck is riding, the history kind of is riding on the Jaguars, where the Chargers really have, I think, a lot load on their shoulders. So I really see this as a game where Trevor Lawrence is able to bring them out, and I'm going to say it's going to be a pretty high scoring game, probably like 30-21 Jaguars.
Wow. Okay. So you have them winning by 9. I mean, the last time they won by 28. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting for me because the Jaguars won the week 3 matchup pretty easily in LA, which is very interesting, to me, so normally, but I still think, I mean, it's a very interesting trajectory this Jaguars team took because after they won that week 3 matchup, they actually lost their next 5 games. And then they were also 4-8. And then they had to win their last 5 games, including the Saturday against Tennessee to get into the playoffs. So this is a very interesting matchup. And I'm kind of going back and forth. I mean, I don't know why I'm really thinking that this time it's going to be different, but I have a feeling the Chargers are going to come out and make a statement. And it's going to be a back and forth close game, but I have the Chargers winning this actually 20-17. So I guess we have our first disagreement on the show. All of us picked the 49ers, 2 of us picked the Jaguars, and I'm going with the Chargers here, 20-17. You're on mute, Rohan.
Yeah. Underbud and I are disagreeing with the betting markets. So I guess you could say that there's a further disagreement there. But I guess you, Amartya, you're going with Vegas on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is really the toss-up for me. Like, I really am just sort of picking who I kind of want to see win. I mean, I think I like Trevor Lawrence a lot, actually. I've actually been a huge Trevor Lawrence fan from the time he was at Clemson. So I'm not huge, but I like him. I've always liked him. But at the same time, I'm just very enamored. Like, this is going to be a very good matchup, I think. I think it's going to be probably the more underrated matchup of the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like the best game, potentially, of the first round of the playoffs. Like, I think that's how good it could potentially be. So we'll see what happens. So let's move on to Sunday. So two of the Patriots' rivals, Dolphins at Bills. Obviously, this is going to probably not be as exciting. So, I mean, obviously, the Dolphins won the Week 3 matchup 21-19. The Bills won Week 16 in Buffalo 32-29. And the Dolphins, of course, took the Patriots spot in the playoffs. But the thing is, Tua Tagovailoa, unfortunately, is still dealing with concussion symptoms, so he's unable to play. We wish him the best, of course. And Skylar Thompson is likely going to be playing for the Dolphins. He's going to be the starter on Sunday, likely. So
not Teddy Bridgewater. Oh,
I think
okay.
he's still questionable. So hopefully Teddy's okay. I mean, of course, it's really unfortunate when we see injuries in this game, but I think this one for me, I don't know. Like, I just think the Bills are just really fired up, as Rohan has said. I'm going to go with Bills 31, Dolphins 13. I'm going to go with a blowout.
I think this is going to be a blowout as well. I'm going with 30-13 Bills on this one.
So 31. You're saying 30? Okay.
Yeah, not much of a difference. Any disagreement between the two of us is merely academic at this point, but I really think it should be a blowout. I mean, as you mentioned, both teams, I mean, the two teams went 1-1 against each other. Both teams won at home. But of course, later in the season, when the Dolphins lost to the Bills, that was in Buffalo. This game is in Buffalo. And the second matchup, when they played head to head, they didn't have Tua, which is kind of a little bit
more.
No,
they had Tua the second time.
Oh, sorry, but without Tua, the Dolphins have kind of gotten cold recently, even losing to the Patriots in that week in that second to last matchup of the season. So given all of that, I would have to say that just from sheer team quality and recent momentum for against the Dolphins, and of course just what the Bills are rallying around, I can't help but just think that this is going to be a blowout. If you want to know Vegas's pick, it's 28-15 Bills. Spreads 13, over unders 43.5. Buffalo -100 to Dolphins plus 550. Not that it really matters, of course. Maybe it will matter if there's some sort of massive upset. Then we can go back and look back on this day and laugh at ourselves. But
I mean, I will say this: like, there are probably like trap games that we're sort of looking at, but I have a feeling the trap game is actually one we're about to preview in a little bit. So that's what I'll say for now. But Nirvan, just say your prediction.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add here. I'm going to say 30-14 Bills crush the Dolphins, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. So 31-13, 30-13, and 30-14. Okay. So Anirban is being the most charitable to the Dolphins here.
Yeah. Okay. So this isn't actually the trap game, but this actually might be the game of the week, actually. I was saying Jaguars-Chargers, but this upcoming game, Vikings-Giants. This is going to be a very good one because Week 17, the Vikings and Giants played in Minnesota. The Vikings won that game 27-24 on a 61-yard game-winning field goal by Greg Joseph. So this was a back and forth, very tight matchup. Both quarterbacks played great. Daniel Jones had 334 yards and a touchdown. Saquon Barkley had a great game, 14 carries, 84 yards, a touchdown. Kirk Cousins played awesome, 34-48, 299 yards, 3 touchdowns. And TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson both had excellent games, over 100 receiving yards. So this is probably going to be the game of the week. This is probably going to be probably the best matchup of wildcard week. Either this or Jaguars-Chargers. Like, if you're probably going to be watching any of the two matchups, any matchups of the week, these are probably the two matchups I would highly recommend to watch, because I think the offense on the displays on offense by both quarterbacks is going to be outstanding. But this is going to be a very exciting matchup. I think the Vikings overall are pretty interesting. They're 13-4, but they actually have a negative point differential because their defense is dreadful. It is one of the worst defenses in the league. Yet somehow they still made the playoffs and won 13 games. Do you know why? Because they were 11-0 in one possession games. They were clutch. but they're also the Vikings. And I've just learned in
Luck
the past.
runs out eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I've just learned in the past that the Minnesota Vikings, something usually heartbreaking happens in the playoffs to them every year. So, like, unfortunately, I want the Vikings to win, but I'm actually going with Giants in an upset here, 26-23.
Ooh,
So,
interesting.
yep.
That's interesting. It's interesting because I disagree, but not by much. Well, I disagree on the outcome, but I also agree that this is going to be a very close matchup. I think this is kind of it's kind of a matchup of contradictions, right? Because if you look at their sheer records, the Vikings are clearly better by a lot on paper. But if you peel that a layer back, and as you mentioned, if you look into their point differentials, the Vikings do definitely kind of look like they have vulnerabilities. And if you have a 13-4 record and have a negative point differential, I guess that means that when you win, you just barely win, and when you lose, you get blown out. And that kind of shows because, I mean, when the Vikings did beat the Giants, as you mentioned, they won 27-24. It was very, very close, like on a 60+ yard field goal. And I guess Vegas kind of agrees with that. The spread on this one is 3 points. The over-under is 48. I do think that this is going to be a high-scoring game, so I kind of agree with that call, at least in the vicinity of that. But I'm actually going 24-23 Vikings on this one. I do think it's going to be high scoring. I do think it's going to be really, really close. But I do kind of think the Vikings still, they just barely pull it off.
Yeah, it's tough for me because I definitely want to root for the Vikings. I have a soft corner for them for sure. And I guess the way I think about it is I know the Vikings have laid some real stinkers this season. I mean, against the Packers, against the Cowboys. But I mean, I think what Amartya said is a key point that when it came to the clutch this season, the Vikings actually were clutch. And I think the Giants have suffered a lot with their injury crises. And I mean, their wide receiver corps is a great example. I mean, Richie James has stepped up a little bit more recently, but I mean, you look at Wan'Dale Robinson was out. I mean, Galladay left this year, obviously, and they have a great run game, but it's hard to really tell. I think the Giants are going to put up a lot of points against the Vikings because, like Amartya says, one of the worst defenses in the league. But I really do think that this year, I mean, Kirk Cousins has among the highest pass attempts, among the highest completions, highest, like I think fourth or fifth highest touchdowns thrown. I really see this being an air battle, and I really actually see a high scoring game. Probably, I think Vikings narrowly pull it out, 37-34.
Okay, yeah. So
I mean, everyone's even going even higher scoring.
I mean, so based on what you're hearing from all of us, basically this is the game you're going to want to watch this week. So, yeah. And now let's go to the trap game. And this is going to be a very interesting matchup because Lamar Jackson is actually out. He's already been officially ruled out for Sunday, but Lamar Jackson is out. So the Baltimore Ravens are going to be traveling to Cincinnati, likely starting Tyler Huntley at quarterback. And the Ravens and Bengals, of course, split the season series, but that last game of the year, which the Bengals won 27-16, it was actually Anthony Brown who started for the Ravens last week, and he threw 2 interceptions. So really, you can't tell anything from that Week 18 matchup. But this is going to be a very interesting matchup, just because I feel this has all the makings of a trap game. But since before I go into the predictions, I just want Nirvan to start because he's been finishing all the predictions. So I'll let you start this prediction. What are your sort of thoughts on this game? This to me is probably the most intriguing matchup, not like in terms of like point differential, just because I feel this is the matchup where the Ravens could actually have a chance with a backup quarterback. I feel this is the matchup with Harbaugh potentially showing like one of his great coaching like games. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see why they could be. I mean, the Ravens are another team that have been absolutely decimated by injuries, and again, wide receiver is a clear example. Isaiah Likely has kind of stepped up as a tight end in place of Mark Andrews, and most notably actually against the Bengals, he had 103 yards on 8 completions. It's, to me, what it comes down to is the Cincinnati Bengals haven't really shown this season that they have a post Super Bowl loss hangover. In fact, really anything else than that, they've been battling with the big teams and coming away with big wins. Putting obviously like they beat the Chiefs 27-24. Then they had like other kind of like victories, like including, I mean, they did split the series with the Ravens. To me, I really feel that the Bengals are thinking this is their year. That I haven't seen any signs of a Super Bowl hangover for them, which to me really tells me they're really going at it and they're really kind of coming into peak form. They have some of the most dangerous, most versatile wide receiver sets in the league with Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. And all three of them really shown a capacity to punish. Joe Mixon is statistically one of the most efficient red zone running backs in the league. As much as I see where you're coming from with the trap game, I really feel like the Bengals have a chip on their shoulder from last year and that they're going to be able to pull it out over, over a backup quarterback. And again, I just don't know if the Ravens can match their intensity when it comes to scoring. I mean, the most points they've scored this season actually is, I believe, 27 points, but that was actually back in November 2017. Since then, they haven't even scraped 20, right? So I think it's going to come out to a high scoring game, and I don't think the Ravens are going to be able to keep up. I think they're going to lose this game, and Bengals are going to win 31-20.
Well, I think every playoff round's got to have one major upset, and if I had to pick one, I think this has got to be it. I mean, the Bengals are definitely a great team. I mean, Super Bowl finalists last time. They're favored by 8 points this time. Of course, still have that strong lineup behind offense behind Joe Burrow, and everyone else around him. I mean, in the head-to-head matchups, I mean, both teams won 1-1. Both teams won at home, so of course that favors the Bengals. Since this game is going to be in Cincinnati, the Bengals do have the better record. It's kind of one of those weird games though, where one team is heavily favored on paper, but I have a strange feeling that the Ravens without Lamar Jackson. I think they'll have some sort of late push. Whether it's going to be enough, I don't know, but I have a strange feeling that Baltimore is going to eke out a win, just barely eke out a win. I think it's going to be maybe a 1 or 2 point victory. I'm going to go with 20-18 on this one. I think it's going to be a little bit more defensive, maybe relatively low scoring, but I think Joe Burrow is probably going to struggle in this one a little bit. And I think Baltimore's not going to be at their best, but I think they're going to have just enough. It's going to be one of those games. I have a strange feeling.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's actually going to be a very tight game, and that's why I've been leading up to that. So, I mean, I'm kind of in Rohan's boat, except I have the opposite team winning. So I actually had the Bengals winning this game 19-17. But I'll make this other prediction. It's going to come down to a game-winning field goal attempt by Justin Tucker from over 60 yards, and Tucker's going to miss. So it'll be right down to the wire, final play of the game. But the Bengals just hold on, 19-17. That's my prediction. So, okay. Yeah, let's see. This will be a fun one. And now let's talk about the last one.
Let's get to our old friend.
Yeah, the best for last, right? The best quarterback of all time.
Speaking of trap games.
Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers, of course, 8-9. We've already talked about it. First time Tom Brady's ever finished below 500 in the season. This is actually a rematch of Week 1. The Buccaneers actually won that game 19-3 in Dallas. And that was actually the matchup where Dak Prescott, the quarterback for the Cowboys, hurt his hand. And he actually ended up missing the next 5 games. Of course, Cooper Rush came in. He actually went 4-1 in those 5 games. So Dallas ended up doing okay. And now Prescott is back. I don't know. After what I saw on Sunday against Washington Commanders, I don't really know what to expect out of Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. The Cowboys are such a Jekyll Hyde team. Their ceiling is Super Bowl contender, but their floor is just absolutely atrocious. So it really depends on which Dallas team we really see on Sunday. I have no idea which one we're going to see, but here's the thing. It's all kind of set up for Brady, right? Brady has his worst regular season in terms of performance. Now he gets a home playoff game against Dallas, a team he's 7-0 against all time. I actually don't care about that. That's been brought up a lot, so I actually don't think that matters at all. Yeah, go on.
As much as I might have misgivings about Brady, and as much as I may not have said nice things about him and his potential place on the Patriots in the future, there is one thing we all understand about Brady, and I think he knows this fully well, in the sense that once you get to the playoffs, the regular season doesn't matter. It's all behind you, and it's all about getting through in the clutch. And he's done that so many times, repeatedly. He just knows the magnitude of the situation, and he's able to execute. And I'm not going to bet against that this time.
Okay, well, you gotta give your score prediction then.
I think it's going to be I would say it's probably going to be 20-17 Bucks on this one. I think The Cowboys are going to put 17 points on the board. I think they're going to put up a fight, but I think the Bucks just have it in them, and I think it's going to be a fourth quarter game-winning drive that's textbook Brady. We've seen it in New England, and he's been able to do it in Tampa Bay as well. Maybe not so much in this regular season, but I think he knows the magnitude of the stage. And not to say that that's not to say that the Bucks could lose, but I've seen enough of this guy that I know what he's capable of.
Yeah, I mean, look, the last memory we have of the Dallas Cowboys playoff is a very unfortunate play on their end where Dak Prescott runs up the middle of the field and they forget to hand the ball back to the ref against the 49ers. And of course, they go on to lose that game in a quite underwhelming fashion. Look, this team is made up of excellent players. Tony Pollard and Zeke both go in for, I believe, over 1,000. Or actually, no, Zeke didn't go for 1,000, but Tony Pollard did. I mean, they have like a smash and run running system. But at the end of the day, I just can't trust this team. I cannot trust this team, and I don't think most Cowboys fans even trust this team because look, 2021 they were 12-5. This year they're 12-5. How many years have we heard about this high octane offense by the Dallas Cowboys? And I mean, again, like Rohan said, I don't think Tom Brady is going to be a good fit for New England, but man, oh man, do I think this is a game that he's just going to walk into. And when it comes to Tom Brady versus Dak Prescott, which is what this game will boil down to, I mean, I only see one winner here, and it's going to be, I think, a frustrating win for Tom Brady. It's going to be probably something like 16-10, and it's probably going to end on, I don't know. I really got to say, I see like Dak throwing a pick to like end this game, maybe at like the Buccaneers like 40 or something.
Wow. You guys picked Brady. I'm going with a blowout here. Cowboys 50, Buccaneers 0. Wow. No, I'm just kidding. Completely kidding. I am not picking the Dallas Cowboys ever to beat Tom Brady. I mean, I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Like, I think it's going to be close-ish. Like, I think Dallas actually has a really good defense. Micah Parsons has been outstanding this year, potential defensive player of the year. They have a really good team overall, but it's going to come down to Mike McCarthy.
50-0. What did you think this was? The college football final? What was it, like 65-7 or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that was ridiculous.
Georgia beating TCU, or like.
I mean, look, the Cowboys actually beat the Bills in the 90s 52-17 in the Super Bowl. So, and that's happened before. So, I mean, the 49ers beat the Broncos in the Super Bowl 55-10. So
I do remember that one.
But you don't remember that one because that was before we were born.
No, I'm sorry.
I think you're thinking of the Seahawks.
You're thinking about Seahawks.
Yeah, the Seahawks Broncos one. Yeah, that one was a blowout. Yeah. The one in 2000, the 13-14 season.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so
the Rams like destroyed the Broncos on Christmas Day, I believe, or no, New Year's Day. No, it was Christmas.
That's true.
Eve.
Yeah. But I mean, I think overall, I think Brady is still, like, now that he's in the playoffs, it's like he's just dangerous. That's just how he is, and I would be terrified if I was Dallas. Like, especially like I the way I'm sort of already imagining this, it's going to be 13-10 in the fourth quarter, final drive, and they're not going to be able to stop Brady. He's going to get a touchdown. And then on the ensuing drive, Dak's going to try to throw a Hail Mary, gets intercepted. Buccaneers win 17-13. I can already picture it. Like, one of the things about Brady, which I still love about it, is like it almost feels like when I'm watching a game late with him, even if he's on the Buccaneers, I can almost predict what's going to happen at the end. When he hit the ball late, I'm like, all right, it's going to be a game-winning drive. And now, like, that he's no longer the Patriots, I don't have that stress anymore. But I still enjoy watching it. It's very interesting.
Look, he might be down, but at the end of the day, if you don't slay the lion will devour you.
Hey, the Falcons do that well.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So these are all our matchups. And yeah, we will be back next weekend to preview the divisional round. So enjoy the week, everyone. These are going to be excellent games. And some of these games will be excellent, I think. Others might be blowouts, but I think we do have a couple great games that will make this weekend memorable. So enjoy the games, everyone. And yeah, we will be back next weekend to preview the divisional round. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. And
right. It's playoff time. It's time for football. Enjoy, everyone.
Thanks for having us. Have a good time, guys. Enjoy the games.
Happy New Year. Peace.